start.
Very
so,
well.
Thank you for being on the podcast, Esteben.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
It's been a very long period of time. We have been, thinking of doing these things together, and it's almost a month maybe you've been here.
Yeah, definitely. I came around the 11th of March, I think, and we came with a big group to do the Annapurna base camp trek. And before that, I contacted you over Instagram because I saw your videos and I liked them very much. Since I'm also a barista trainer at the Berlin School of Coffee, I was really interested about the things that you're doing here in Nepal, and that's why I contacted you. And I'm super happy that we were able to meet and to do this together. And well, it's been a pleasure the past few days that we've been like talking and meeting and doing some cupping and these things.
Yeah,
so
it's been
so much.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for approaching us as well. It's been great, honor to be, here with you as well. So let's start with how, about yourself. Why don't you, introduce yourself and let people know that what do you actually do and your background is actually. I'm really glad, the first time I knew about you that you are also a farmer, a trainer, and have been involved in coffee. At least for like 3 generations from your family, and then you yourself for like almost 2 years. Yeah, but I would love to know that more. Why don't you talk about yourself first?
Yeah, thank you so much. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Esteben I'm originally from Colombia. We have a coffee farm near Medellin, in the district of Santo Domingo in Antioquia, and it's called Lindalaja. It's around 67 hectares big, and we started planting again after the farm was barren for a long time because of the violence in Colombia. So we started planting again around 3 years ago, and right now we have around 10,000 plants in production. This year we want to plant another 10,000, and we want to ramp up production in the next few years so we can produce a couple of tons a year. So that's happening in Colombia. I myself am living in Berlin, in Germany. I'm a barista trainer at the Berlin School of Coffee, and I started there last year in July. First, I took all the courses, and then I started teaching as well because I have a background also in teaching. I did some workshops for the university, and so that's I love education. I love teaching people things, and that's a big passion of mine as well. So basically that's me. We started around this month while I was here in Nepal. We had our big first trial roast in Berlin, and when I come back to Berlin next week, I will cup it for the first time, so I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome, actually.
Yeah. I mean, probably everyone on the podcast already knows you, but maybe for the people listening in Europe, tell us a little bit about you. I'm really interested.
Sure. Well, my name is Manoj Shahi. Now, I've been in this field for like around 9 years now, working as a barista, and working for an international franchisee company as well. And I've actually, to be honest, it's just been, I would say, 3 years, 4 years. I've literally been in coffee, working professionally and working in specialty coffee as well. That's how I started actually. So I started with to work for an international franchisee company, which was here in Nepal. So mostly my education was outside of the country, where I could get a lot of information regarding international coffee from different places actually, and came back to Nepal, did the training for 1 month, and then came back again. And again, we started as a barista, became a supervisor, then manager, and then I'm one of the co-founder of Baristas Coffee School. So when we started the coffee school, it was the same Italian coffee culture that we had, teaching the same methods of Italian coffee culture. But later on, when we started to know, get to know more about Nepali coffee culture, and then learn more about the Nepali coffee culture, we started to research and talk about more Nepali coffee, especially in Nepal, because there are a lot of people who needs to understand what actually Nepali coffee is. So because there are a lot of people who are still consuming instant coffee over here, But right now, it's been almost 4 years now. We have established the business, and there are a lot of people who has been consuming the coffee beans actually, and they know more about what actually the coffee is and the potential of the Nepali coffee that we have here. So yeah, that's how we're starting, and yeah, I try to make more and more videos on Nepalese coffee, and talk about those coffees so that people understand what do we have, and we need to consume more and more Nepalese coffee. So I try to give those information to the people as well. So yeah, that's what we do.
That's super interesting. And today when I was coming back from the farm, I was researching Nepal isn't even in the coffee belt, and there's still the climate to produce really good coffee, because you have all of these microclimates in the Himalaya mountains. And today when I went to the coffee farm, I saw the plants and they were super healthy. So that's super interesting to me.
Exactly, because the terrain that we have, looking after the terrain, it's we have a very high potential on producing very good, good quality coffees, and more of a good quality specialty coffees actually. But we do not have a proper information how we can do it actually. Yes, there are a lot of things which we can look forward to, but still there are a lot of problems that we need to face because of the vegetation that we have. So the farmer knowledge, how to produce the coffee as well, how to keep the soil fertile for a very long period of time, and there are a lot of farmers who do not have the idea, coffee can be a cash crops as well, because most of the people are still practicing the traditional method of doing the farming side. But coffee culture is growing slowly, so there are a lot of people who understand that they can get or see high income if they can produce good quality coffee in near future. So there are a lot of people, let's say young people, who are really into farming side, especially in coffee. So yes, I'm hoping for the best, and the new technology that we are getting, we want to take that to the farmers as well, and make them understand what they can do and work on the let's say farm, or let's say during the processing methods, and a lot of things.
Yeah, very interesting. I when I think and when I hear you talk about the processing methods, and I've seen some of the videos you showed me about how the washing process is done here and these things. I find it really interesting because from the processing standpoint, it goes in a direction that even we in Colombia are heading towards, because in the past we would use lots and lots of water to ferment the coffee and these things, and now more and more we are in washed coffee or in fermented coffee, when you depulp the coffee, you have a couple of possible ways to ferment it. And you can just depulp it and leave it with the mucilage and ferment it that way. And there are new machines that, after this has happened, they take it into eco mill, it's called. So it uses a very little amount of water to, after the fermentation has been done, to just wash it. And so it saves water, it's good for the environment, and it does pretty much what we used to do with the old processing facilities I was telling you earlier about, with much less water. And so these things could be very interesting. I could show you maybe some Colombian companies, but maybe also Indian companies that can bring it to you cheaper, can maybe also make it. Yeah,
that would be great actually. I would love to see that as well. But there are a lot of things in a positive way, if we have to look after these things. There are a lot of farmers who are getting access to depulping machine right now, but still there are a lot of farmers who do not have access to depulping machine as well. They do not have any idea about the depulping machine. So if you see, I have talked to some of the farmers who who are practicing depulping with their hands. So they basically wash the cherries. They grow the coffee cherries in around I think 2 or 3 plants. They harvest it, they grab around like 10-20 kgs of coffee cherries, and then depulp it with their hands.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, they waited for like 2 or 3 days in the water. It is soaked, and after that they wash it with the hands, and they remove the outer skin and pulp, keep the parchment, and they do the hulling process as well. I've spoke to those farmers as well. So I have asked as well. So there are a lot of people like this who do not have the idea about the processing methods as well, and they do not have the idea how easily these things can be done
with a machine.
Exactly.
Yeah. And like when they process it with the hands and they depulp it with the hands, have you tasted the difference?
Yes.
How is it? Because I'm super interested. I have no concept of how that would taste different. So please tell me a bit about it.
It's kind of similar. It does not have any much changes or any unique flavors. The reason for that is after the processing, they depulp the coffee cherries. They stored in a different places where they have the idea how to do it or how to store it. So the coffee were oxidized actually, and it tasted more of like aged as well. So I spoke to the farmers as well, and I asked him, what did you do after the processing or after the depulping the coffee cherries? He said that we put this thing into in a normal muddy places, or let's say the place where there were a lot of straws and everything. So that might be one of the reason the coffee were aged. So the thing is that I came to know that they didn't have the idea how to store the coffee as well. And as you remember, we spoke about this thing yesterday as well. The farmers might be doing the work very properly, but there are a lot of things during the processing methods and storing the coffee as well. People need to take care of those things as well, because if the coffee is not stored properly, though the coffee have a very high potential of scoring 90 plus coffee, but at the end of the day that won't be scoring even 85 or let's say 80, because the coffee tastes more aged because of the storage problem. So that is one of the reasons that people need to, or let's say farmer needs to understand, especially in Nepali market.
For sure, they need to be more educated, and they need to understand that like one thing that's said a lot in the industry, and I think a lot of it is true, is that once the coffee is on the tree, that's the highest quality it will get. So all of the chain, it has to look after how to keep quality high.
Exactly.
So after the processing, if you don't dry it correctly and if you don't store it correctly, then maybe some unwanted bacteria or fungi will get into the coffee and will change the flavor in a way that doesn't help it. So if the people learn how to store it correctly, how to dry it correctly, that would automatically increase the quality and make for a better cup.
Exactly.
And then also farmers can ask for a higher price and get a better payment for it.
And also the other reason that I really believe that when I think the farmer needs to taste their own coffee as well, because they need to understand what are the different the quality actually is, what are the commercial coffee tastes like, or what specialty coffee tastes like, and how they can improve it as well.
For sure.
And how they can improve the processing methods as well, because there are a lot of farmers who are still practicing, or let's say the old traditional method of processing the coffee beans, but for them that might be new. But if you compare those stuff to the international market, for example, the thing that you just said during the processing method that you guys do and the processing method that we do in Nepal, it's totally different actually. So these are the traditional method that we have been doing it, but the farmers, they are just learning it right now, and it's a new thing as well. So this is something very much important, and it's very much to concern about, because unless and until we do not teach the farmer, or let's say ask them to drink their own coffee, or the coffee that was produced in the same farm, they won't understand how they can improve the quality of the coffee. Because there are a lot of farmers I've spoke to and asked them if they have tasted their own coffee with a different roasting profile, or let's say using any kind of equipment. There are a lot of farmers who has been explaining me that they have not seen the espresso machine till now, or they have not seen the brewing equipment till now. So that is the main thing that we need to really concern about, because as a barista, it's not about serving the consumer only, but as a barista, or let's say producer, the farmer needs to understand what quality coffee they are producing and what quality coffee that the consumer is drinking. So the whole chain should be much more concerned about the last cup actually. That's what I believe. So that's, if we can control that one, maybe not on the higher level, but on a smaller level or a smaller quantity, where people, or let's say farmer, understand what they are producing and what is the value of that cup to the international market, or let's say national market, I think we can definitely come up with very good quality coffees.
For sure, and I think also it's a big responsibility of, for example, roasters to like teach the farmers that they buy from, because in this way, when the roaster buys the coffee from the farmers and they teach the farmer how to increase the quality, the roaster will have better quality, and they can also pay the farmers better. And so most of this information normally is the roasters have it, and if the roasters ask sometimes there are producers or mills that will buy the coffee cherries or the parchment from the farmers in wholesale and then sell it to the roasters. And so if the roasters ask for high quality and provide the education, then more and more farmers can learn how to do these things in the right way.
When we spoke about the producer, I believe that we had this communication. The definition of the producer in your language and in my language is totally different.
Yeah, because when I talk about the producer, I'm thinking about the farmer.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about the producer, you were talking about
the people who does the farming as well, but also collects coffee and sell that to the directly or the cafeteria, who does mostly the same stuff. Because most of the people over here, they do the they have the farm as well. They also buy the coffee from different places. They also grow the coffee. They does the milling process. They also have the roasting machine, and they try to they sell the packaging, the drinking coffee to the cafeteria.
I understand.
So that is the main reason I believe that this should be called as a producer in Nepal. Maybe yes, outside of Nepal there are a lot of people who understand what actually the producer is. But over here we have a lot of cooperatives and the private companies who mostly have their own farm or grab the coffees, and they're basically doing the large quantity of coffee business actually. So
that's really interesting to me, because for example when I come from Germany, in Germany there isn't one single coffee tree growing and producing. It's like everything is imported from overseas. And so in Germany you have the trade chain in Germany is you have the exporter in the origin country, then you have the importer in Germany. And most of the importers are like big importers that buy from many different origins, and then they sell to the roasters. And so the roaster then produces the coffee, packages it, and sells it to the cafe or sells it directly. So all of these in Germany at least are different companies. Of course, there are some roasteries who do all this process themselves, and even some of the roasteries in Germany have a farm overseas somewhere. But that's why the communication there is a bit different, because there are almost no people in Europe, I would say, that or there are some, but they all have, if they have a farm, they have it overseas somewhere else. And so the chain is a bit more lengthy than here. Here you have...
We have it very short. By the way, this is only my definition of producer, not the everyone. So please, disclaimer, if you claim that, okay, this is the thing, I'm so sorry. This is only my definition.
No worries. No worries at all.
Because I see in that way, because we have a very small community that in coffee culture, and there are a lot of things to be done actually, and we do not have very long chain actually. So there's only one person, or let's say one company, who does the farming as well, collects the coffee as well, and roasts the coffee, and they package it, and then they sell it.
Which is very good for
the business perspective.
For a business perspective, because you don't have middlemen. So when you have the producers here in Nepal, they are doing good business and they're helping directly the farmers, and they don't have like middlemen like overseas who do the whole trading. So this is really good actually.
But still be expensive coffee, you see.
It is very expensive, I've heard. It's incredible. For a commercial grade, the prices that I was hearing yesterday were relatively high, like around $10 to $12 a kilogram is really high for a commercial grade.
So we tasted yesterday. We cupped some of the coffees as well. We cupped I think 6 samples yesterday. So let's talk about that coffees as well. What do you think about Nepalese coffee that you have tasted till now? It's been almost like 6 months now, and you have tasted some special. I think we tasted a lot of specialty coffees yesterday. So what do you think?
So in the almost a month that I've been here, I've tasted Mostly during the trek. There were some espresso machines, and I had some cappuccinos, double espressos, americanos, and things like this. So these, I noticed that it was a very Italian coffee culture when I drank those. Some of them were really well-made Italian. So like it was a dark roast, but the machine was well. The grinder was well dialed in, the machine, the barista pulled a good shot and made a really good espresso-based drink with that, so I enjoyed them. But they were always like these very roasty flavors, a bit dark chocolate, the typical, the typical Italian roasted coffee.
Yeah.
So those were my first coffee experiences with Nepalese coffee.
Yeah.
And after the trek, when I came back to Kathmandu and we met at Kathmandu Coffee, I had a completely different experience. So it was the first time in Nepal that I was tasting flavors that were more reminiscent of the third wave coffee that I usually taste more like in Germany and Europe and these things. So yesterday we tried 5 different coffees.
6 samples.
6 samples. One of the coffee was roasted in 2 different ways.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting to me to know and see that we have these 5 different origins inside Nepal. There are probably some more that I don't know yet about.
Yeah.
But yesterday we tasted these 6 coffees in total, and I was really, really surprised and happy to taste such good quality. Like I remember the coffee from Nuwakot. Thank you. I'm still getting a bit confused with
That's
these
fine. You'll
things.
get over there. Don't worry.
Yes. So from
Nuwakot, Palpa.
From Nuwakot,
And second
Palpa.
was Palpa.
Exactly. These 2 were my favorites.
Yeah.
Nuwakot we had in 2 different roasts. One was a City Plus roast and one was a full city roast. All of the other coffees were in a full city roast, and I'm really interested to taste how the full city roast will develop.
Yeah.
Because my personal favorite was the Nuwakot
City Plus.
It had been developing for like 5 days after roasting, and I thought it was very fruity but well balanced, and it had some hints of tea but more fruit. It was almost a bit like a fruit, but I thought it could be a natural even when it was a wash actually. So
that was done basically anaerobic process, because we didn't know that there was actually,
we didn't know that was the anaerobic process.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Now I understand why it was such a fruit bomb, and it was really good. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
So we didn't know about the coffee. Actually, the cup was pretty much blind to us. Later on, we talked to the the processing and everything, the storage and everything. When we got the information regarding the cup, we came to know that the Nuwakot, that was like anaerobic process, and we had the natural Palpa and Gulmi as well.
Oh, the Palpa was a natural.
Yeah.
And okay, that was also the second, like in my taste, the second best.
Best was the.
It like that one. I thought it was a really well balanced coffee that I could drink a whole morning. Like this much filter coffee with a couple of friends and just talking and sipping and enjoying.
So this brings to me, I have a question on, the same kind of coffee. If you have to compare the cup we cupped yesterday, the 6 samples, and if you compare those to whatever you have, especially coffees till now, what do you think? Like, how much how much we have? How do you compare these things? Like, do we have the potential on improving on those cup, or you think they are really large gap? It will take time.
I don't think the gap is that large in these 6 cups. Like, there were some of the cups that I didn't enjoy that much. But they weren't bad either.
Yeah.
They were still good coffees that just, in comparison to the other ones, in comparison to Nuwakot and Palpa, they just weren't as good.
Exactly.
But I think if the farmers and the producers on the processing side improve their quality management and their processes, I think that those coffees could also improve a lot. And when I think about the coffees I normally cup in Germany, they're like with the anaerobic processed Noakot, the City Plus, it reminded me of like really nice and fruity Igarchefe Ethiopia coffee, and I really enjoyed it. And actually I think that if you get processing right and if you roast it right, then I think you can have some really nice Nepalese coffee.
What do you actually prefer, Esteban? Do you prefer more naturals or more washed coffee?
That depends a bit on the day. Like I like both very much, but sometimes I really enjoy like these fruit bombs, and sometimes I just want a mellow, clean and clear cup that I can just sip. So it really depends a bit on the day. Yeah, I like both very much. I think in general, the washed ones have a bit more of a stable quality standard.
Yeah.
But if you have really well-made naturals, they're still super good. So if they're both well-made, then I like both very much. If it's like a little bit less quality on both, then maybe the washed ones will be better.
So you have tasted a lot of coffees in Nepal, right?
So yeah, I have drank a lot, but the thing is, while doing the trek, when I was drinking lots of coffee there, I asked many times if they knew where the coffee came from, and most of the people couldn't really tell me. So I tasted a lot of different coffees, but I really think that the bigger idea I got about Nepalese coffee was cupping with you.
Yeah, that is one thing, you know, I try to convey the message to the people through you know, whatever we make, the videos and everything. The transparency is very much important, because there are a lot of people who do not have the idea about where the coffee is actually from. Number one. Number two, they do not know what they are drinking. Yeah. Number three, they do not have the idea, is it the best coffee, whatever they are paying. Like they pay around like 200 rupees, 300 rupees, 150 rupees for a cup of coffee, which is kind of expensive. I know that, because Nepalese coffee is pretty much expensive. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think that the transparency should be there, where they should know that what kind of quality they are drinking, or let's say where the coffee is from actually. Yeah. And the other factor that I really believe is that the producer sector, or let's say the people who gives the coffee to the cafeteria, they should be more clear about the origin, because we do not produce too much of coffees, and I believe this is my own personal stuff, that I really believe that the coffee that we have, it's not only from one place. So there might be a lot of blended coffee as well. There are a lot of things which they mix together and they serve to the cafeteria, because we have a very less amount of coffee. So we know that, but still we are not clear about those things. So if the producer, if they can clarify, or let's say put this thing as a transparent, okay, this coffee is from here. Let's say if you're having Brazilian coffee, or let's say Colombian coffee, we can definitely say, okay, this is the Brazilian coffee, this is the Colombian coffee we have, and you can compare these coffee with the Nepalese coffee, and then drink these kind of coffees as well. So this is one of the problems that I think that that will be resolved later in the future, very soon maybe, where people will ask to the barista where the coffee is actually from, and what kind of coffee they are drinking. The barista will ask
the manager, and the manager will ask the producer, and then it will go through a chain. And one way I've seen, even with blended coffees, you can also put on the package like there is coffee from Guatemala, from Nepal, and from Nicaragua in this bag, and then it has a blend name, and so there you can increase the transparency as well. And if you have a single origin, if you say what variety it is, if it's only one variety, or if it's more varieties from the same origin, that's also interesting. What height the coffee was harvested in, or maybe if it's one farm, what is the height range is also interesting. and what's the processing method. If it's a natural, if it's a washed, if it's anaerobic. These things are super interesting to the people who are drinking the coffee as well.
Yes, like there are not a lot of people who have been practicing the same thing, because you have seen yesterday as well, we saw that package, there was some information over there, but not everyone does that. They just mentioned that this is a pure organic Nepali coffee that we have here, but kind of vivid information that they have it on the packaging. And that's what we try to talk and ask to the producer, or let's say whoever has that packaging or the brand they belong to, actually please to to put all the information. I also wanted to ask the roasting that you have been tasting, that you have been getting from different places, the roasting profile. How much difference do you get compared to your place and the coffee that you have been testing here?
So
is it kind of similar, the roasting profile and everything, or do you think there is some differences or a lot of differences?
So do you mean like the coffee that I've been tasting during the trek and the coffee that I know from Germany?
No, the whole process in Nepal, I would say Nepal
as a whole, the trek and the coffee I have tasted with you,
and
Germany. So yeah, there has been a bit of a difference. I split it into three, like also with the trek and tier, because it's a bit of a difference. Sure. During the trek, I had some Italian roasted coffees that were more harsh, I guess, that were a bit astringent, bitter, and that could be from the roasting, but also from the grind setting. And what I've noticed in many of the packages is that the coffee was relatively old, like from 2019, packaged in 2019. So it's coffee that has been roasted a long time ago, that's maybe already oxidized, which I can understand it very well, because since COVID happened, not many tourists have been coming, and then the hotels on the mountain haven't used up all of their coffees, and I can understand perfectly well that they first want to use the coffee that they still have, which is completely fine. But it explains a bit of the flavor to me, because it was already a bit oxidized. Even with that, some of the darker roasted coffees, even if they were a bit older, when everything was set right in the machine and in the grinder, I thought they tasted very well, in an Italian fashion, like not third wave, but still in a dark roast. It was very, very. It had a good body. It had a good crema. It gave me, like when I was in the mountains, it gave me a feeling of having a good cup of coffee, because I was happy to just have it. And it was when the settings were right. It's all good. Like you can get me with a cappuccino and some chocolate things, and it's all right. But when I came to the city and I came to Kathmandu Coffee, and I got the first espresso that actually tasted fruity and floral and all these things, was I'm back. It's like it was a different feeling altogether again. So I think in this case, the roasting profile is more similar. And you have like I saw the two roasting machines that you're using in the bigger production facility and in the smaller one. You have roasters from Guarantee, and in the smaller one I saw that it's a roaster where you can electronically control the profile very well. So with this, I understand very well that you can manage to have a really well thought out profile, and then you can taste that in a cup immediately. And of course, when we're talking about specialty coffee in Germany, most of the times you have really high-tech machines that can go a really precise profile. So you will have some differences there, but with the means you have here, it's really amazing what you're able to come out with. And the more access to information and the more access to better machines you will have, the higher the quality will become automatically. Because I think the potential is there in the beans, definitely.
Awesome. I believe so, that, because now, compared to what we have been doing before, and what we are doing right now. There are a lot of roasting machine that we can see in the capital, actually, not only in the capital but outside of the capital as well. There are a lot of places outside of the valley where people have started to roast the coffee by themselves, and they are learning every point of time. They are asking to a lot of people, trying to come up with good roasting profiles and everything. So yeah, looking forward to this thing as well, because if everybody has the roasting machine and they can roast by themselves and come up with different profiles, share the coffee with each other, definitely we can come up with good roasting, a platform where people understand what actually good quality coffee is all about. Because in Nepal, still a lot of people, a lot of cafe, they practice the Italian coffee culture. And it just been not even a few years, I would say a couple of months where people are practicing specialty coffee on a professional level, actually. So that they have understood what actually specialty coffee is all about, what actually the good quality coffee is all about. So yeah, hopefully in coming future we can get some more good quality roasting profile as well.
For sure. And if you're talking about this direction, I'm reminded of a bit of the coffee culture I saw in China, and a bit of the coffee culture that I've heard about in Taiwan, where many cafes have their own small little 2-kilogram roasting machine, and so they're in constant communication about the roasting profiles, and maybe one cafe will roast for 3 other cafes in the vicinity and for themselves. And there are all of these smaller, all very exact electronic roasters also from China that you can use to innovate in the roasting profiles on a smaller scale, on a 2-kilogram per batch scale.
Wow.
And it's interesting if you can implement this kind of coffee culture, then maybe it can happen that it will start being a very bustling and hustling coffee culture where everyone is talking about their roast profiles and these things. Maybe it's a bit idealistic, but I would love for it to happen. It's really
good.
Nice.
So Esteben, like you basically belong from Colombia, but you still live in Germany, right? So where do you source the coffee from?
So right now, I live in Germany. I come from Colombia. We have the coffee farm there. I started my company just last year, and the first time I imported coffee was around November. So that was a very, very small batch from our farm only. And I started learning to roast actually with that batch of coffee in a coffee school, and there I roasted the coffee. I just gave it to friends and got feedback. And so now this time around, 2 months ago, I imported a bigger batch, like 375 kilos, from our farm and from our neighbor's farm in Colombia, both coffees from Colombia. And I got into a cooperation with a well-established roaster in Berlin who is going to be production roasting our coffee for us. So I'm buying the roasting service from them and then selling our coffee through our website in the European market.
Wow.
So I sell in Germany, Austria, Spain. I sell pretty much everywhere in the EU, and we're maybe in the future also planning to sell in the United States, but for now we're focusing on the European Union.
Okay, so how much, I'm just curious, how much easy is it, to trade the coffee, to international market? I mean, I'm asking about more support from the government, or let's say the Colombian government, or say the German government, or everything like that. Do you have any easy access, or would that be a good question for you?
It's a good question, and I can answer it, and it's a pretty long answer, so that's why I'm. So let's start with the Colombian side, to export, for example. On the Colombian side, to be able to export coffee, you have a couple of options. Either you buy the exporting service from a well-established exporter that normally buys coffee from a lot of different farms and sells it to importers overseas. Or you do a whole very lengthy and a bit difficult process of becoming an exporter yourself, which is really not that easy, but can be done. And then you can start exporting yourself. So we in this step bought the exportation service from someone, but then in Germany directly I imported myself. But in Germany, to be able to import, you need a few also official and bureaucratic things, which, for example, I needed a specific number. It's called the ORI number, which is an importation number for Germany. And to get this, I asked for it from the customs office, and it took around 8 weeks, or maybe even a bit longer, to get to me. Normally, I think when there's no COVID, it's faster. But for me, it took a really long time until I got the number and I was allowed to import anything. So there's a lot of paperwork to do if you want to import things to Germany and to other places probably as well, but I don't know the specifics about them. Also, once I imported the bigger batch, I had to get in contact with a lot of offices. For example, in German it's called the Pflanzenschutzamt. It's the office that takes care that no foreign plants that come into Germany can affect the biosphere in Germany. So with coffee it's not a big problem because coffee can't grow in Germany well. But I still had to talk to them, and I still had to fill out some forms. I still had to do a lot of paperwork so that they would say, okay, yeah, it's fine that you import the coffee. And it's the same thing with a couple of different offices. So you have to go and do the whole paperwork, and then it's fine. And then you can import and start doing business.
I think compared to us, it's pretty much easy, right? So there'll be less amount of tax that is involved in the coffee.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I heard yesterday. I mean, in Germany you have the duty to bring in green coffee is 0. Then you have added tax value, added value tax. That's around, like VAT is around 10% for the coffee when you import it. And then once you roast it, for every kilogram of coffee you roast, you have to pay to the tax office €2.19 for every kilogram. Or if you import it already roasted, it's 25% tax. So these are the taxes you have to pay in Germany. But I heard here they are a lot
too expensive.
more.
That is the main reason why the coffees over here, when we have to export that coffees to international market, that's it booms out the price. So that is one of the main reason why there are a lot of producer they cannot sell the coffee to the international market, and they are really willing to sell in a very small batch so that the other side they can purchase it as well, and from this side they can sell it as well. But I think also there are a lot of the market, especially in Nepal, the local market is also increasing. So it's a very good gateway to sell your own coffee to the national level, to the local market as well. Because we only produce 513 metric tons of coffee in Nepal, theoretically, which is mentioned by the government side that we have. But I believe we still have a lesser amount than that. But still, hopefully in the future, if we start producing very good amount of coffee, more than 513 metric tons, so yeah, we can sell good coffee to the international market as well. So I see a lot of people complaining about the price is really expensive. That's because not only the coffee, but there are a lot of things, the tax and everything. So if this is resolved, most probably there is more chances of selling the good coffees to the international market as well.
For sure. I'm hoping it works.
So let's talk about your farm as well. What kind of varietals that you have right now?
So the ones that are already in production is mostly Castillo, which is one of the varietals that the Colombian government
it's a mix of Cultura and
and
Katimor?
I'm not entirely sure. I would look it up and I will post it. We will post it in the notes.
Sure.
But I know it's from Katura and others. So it was created so that it's resistant to leaf rust, but it also has a good cup, and it's a very pleasing cup. So this one we already have in production. We have varietal San Bernardo in production that I like very much personally. And we have planted a lot of tabi, and we have planted some geisha.
Wow.
Also, it's five. It's Castillo, tabi,
Bernardo,
San Bernardo,
geisha 4.
Geisha, also Caturra, some old plants that my grandfather already was planting, and we have some of them also that we have planted new ones, but not that many. And we have one more varietal, which is the new varietal that the Colombian government has made, which is Ceni Cafe 1.
Ceni Cafe 1.
Yes.
Is it a selection? Mutation?
It's another, selection. It's another mutation. I haven't tasted it yet because it's relatively new, but we planted it this year. So I'm really looking forward to tasting it and to seeing how it performs in the cup and volume-wise as well. So these are the varietals we have in our farm, and I hope maybe in the next 3 years all of them will be in production. Right now we only have the Castillo in production, and we have the San Bernardo in production.
Wow.
A little bit of tabi, and a little bit of the old Caturra, but it's not that much. So we're using those seeds mainly, or that coffee mainly, to reseed and to plant more.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you have been to the farm, today as well, right?
Yeah.
So how was the experience?
It was amazing. It was, originally I thought that in Colombia we had pretty steep hills where the coffee grows, which on some parts it's true, but when I saw the farm, like almost all of it is completely on a what you would say hillside.
Yeah.
In Germany we would call it a mountain. There's something interesting about Nepal I learned, like here mountains start to be called mountains after 4,000 and something meters. And in Germany, that's already a really high mountain. And here it's just a hill, which is really funny to me. But yeah, so I came there, and you have all of these terraces where the coffee grows, and where you actually have like a coffee forest with some apple trees. I saw macadamia trees, some lychee trees.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of different agricultural products that you're growing besides the coffee that also help get the farmers some income and some things to eat. Which I find is really, really good and interesting, because it also helps, for example, for the local fauna, for the birds to inhabit the trees and these things. So we do the same thing with other different plants in Colombia.
Wow.
On our farm we have some banana trees, we have chachafrutos, which is a very big kind of bean, which has a really high protein concentration, and you can make into a puree, and it's really yummy.
Do you cook that?
Yeah, you can cook that and eat it. It's really good. And we have the nogales de café, which is I think it's like a walnut that grows on the coffee fields. That is a big shade tree that helps the coffee get some shade and to help the aeration, and so the plants don't get too hot,
So what are the things that you really think that's very much important when you work on a coffee farm? I would not say if you own a coffee farm, but if you're someone who is really interested in coffee farming, what are the things that you really need, to understand?
Yeah, so I think it's very important for you to understand the variety you're working with, and so, for example, to know what color shade is the right one to pick the cherries. So you really only want to pick the ripe cherries, and you don't want them to get overripe, because when they get overripe, they attract insects, and that lowers the quality. So if you have like yellow Caturra in the case of this coffee farm I visited today, you could, for example, get a Brix meter, a refractometer, and measure the sugar content inside the cherry. And then after many measurements, you would know at which measurement it's fully ripe, and you would know the shade, the color shade that is the correct one to actually pick it. And one thing that many farms have implemented in South America is that they give the workers like bracelets, like just some silicone bracelets in the right color, so that the workers know by looking at the bracelet what color of cherry they have to pick.
So that should be kind of maroon? Maroon color?
Yeah, it depends. Like for example, if you have like the red cherries, then it's a red bracelet. If you have the yellow cherries, is the yellow bracelet.
Is it specifically designed to pick up the cherries? The bracelet, or just a regular bracelet?
You know these silicone bracelets that are a bit stretchy? Yeah, so these, and you buy them in the shade that would be the ripe cherry. So you look at the color. You maybe take a photograph that's a good color photograph, and you extract with your computer the right color, the right maybe Pantone code or the right hexadecimal code. And then you go with that to someone who produces these bracelets. You tell them, I want, I don't know, depending on the coffee farm size, I want 20 bracelets with exactly this color, so I can give them to the workers, and they can pick exactly this color of cherry.
I see.
So that would be the way. Other things, composting and making your own fertilizer, as we talked earlier about the worm fertilizer that we use in Colombia, and we can include that bit that we talked about in here, or that's really important to start producing your own fertilizer.
How often do you use cattle, the wastages,
Yeah, that we also put with the worms. Like we have one worker who's employed at our farm, who just his job is to shovel the wastes of the cattle into
the compost pit.
No, into a how do you call them? This bin with the wheels and so to shovel it into that and to bring it to the worms, and so we put it all with the worms, and the worms will eat it and they will compost it again.
Did you see the kettle today over there? Goats and cows.
Yeah, I saw I think 2 buffaloes.
Buffalo.
Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, they had 2 buffaloes.
I saw the 2 buffaloes, and I saw lots of goats.
Goats, yeah.
Yeah, and so the droppings of the goats and also the droppings of the chickens, you can use to compost, and to you can use them directly, but if you do worm compost, then it will increase again the quality. Yeah,
that's awesome. So I was talking about, we were talking about actually the specialty coffees, and you have tasted a good quality specialty coffees, 90 plus coffees as well, and you have tasted the specialty coffee that we had as well. So what do you think, is it only the farming side, or let's say roasting side, or let's say, or just that, the channel that we have it, is it only the thing that we need to take care of, while we are talking about specialty coffee, or also the barista side as well,
Of course, like because it's the whole chain, definitely. So first it's the farm, then it's the processing, then it's the roasting, and after that, of course, it's also the barista. So the barista has to know how to extract well. If they're using an espresso machine, they have to know the machine, they have to know how to dial in the grinder, how to dial in their machine, so that they have a well extracted espresso, not under extracted, over extracted, because even if you have roasted coffee that's over 90 points, if the barista doesn't know what they're doing, you won't get a 90-point cup.
Yeah.
But if the barista is well learned and knows what they're doing, you will get an amazing experience with that cup of coffee. So yeah, and I guess that's here in this place in the Baristas Coffee School, your area of expertise.
Thank you. So we're almost to the end of the session, but I still want to ask you, what do you think of the whatever you have got till now? Maybe within this month, the whole 1 month.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Nepalese coffee culture? The environment that you had, the places you have been. Not in an expertise way, but just like a random thought about the Nepalese coffee culture, because you have been to a lot of places in Germany, or let's say in Colombia as well. You produce a very good high quality coffee as well. But in terms of the environment that you have, the Nepalese coffee culture, what do you think about this thing?
So I think it's very diverse. It's the first thing that pops into mind, because here in Kathmandu and in Pokhara, I went to coffee shops that were like, the interior design was very well made, and there was a lot of beautiful art on the walls, and it felt very comfortable. It felt very cozy. And also I went to like little coffee shops in the mountains that were like not more than a little shack with an espresso machine, but a nice big terrace and a beautiful view. And the person there maybe knew how to make basic latte art, but they didn't know, for example, how to dial in the machine. And then the next place they knew how to. And so it has been a very diverse experience, some very, very good ones, some funny ones, and sometimes it was just maybe also some subpar espresso, but I guess that's mostly when the people who are behind the machine don't really know what they're doing. But most places, even if they didn't know what they were doing, they were super friendly and they were super helpful. So in general, I think, and that's one of the most important things in my opinion, the hospitality side. That when you get to a coffee shop, that when you get to any kind of restaurant or to gastronomy, you feel welcome. You feel like they want to take care of you, and that you feel that you're a well-regarded guest, and you can just feel comfortable there. So I think that's the most important thing, and all of the coffee quality, the expertise that comes after that, those are maybe more technical things that are also important to improve. But at the end, you're dealing with people, you know, and so on a personal level, that's a thing that will color the whole experience a lot. And in this regard, I think Nepali coffee culture has been really a treat for me, because the people here have been super nice, and I've really enjoyed all of my experiences in one way or another, ranging from the most technical knowledge and the less. Everyone was super, super nice and helpful to me. I'm glad.
And the reason I ask these things, because you are into a Berlin Coffee School as well, where you teach people, regarding the basic fundamental knowledge of, how to brew coffee and everything.
Yes.
So definitely, if I go to somewhere else, I definitely see, what actually people are doing. Is it good way, or is it like something is wrong with that one?
Yeah.
So we took definitely, no matter what, how much you want to ignore that, you definitely see. Right.
Sure.
So that was the main reason we wanna, I really wanted to know, how do you see people? There were a lot of things that people have the proper ideas about extractions, or let's say running a coffee shop and everything. And while talking about Berlin Coffee School, what you actually do in Berlin Coffee School as an instructor? You said you're an instructor.
Exactly. So I give classes. I give, like, for example, 3-day courses where we teach people who don't have any prior knowledge to become baristas. So in the first day they get a basic introductory course with like 1.5 hours or 2 hours of coffee theory. What types of grinders are there? What types of machines are there? how can you brew coffee, and then we go into the classroom and we do a practical part where we extract coffee and we taste and compare and show the people what the different stages of extraction are, for example. And when they have done that, the next day it's a little bit more advanced. So there they get more botanical knowledge. They learn a bit about shade management. They learn about different varieties in the theory. And then we go again to the practice room where we have a couple of espresso machines, and we brew some coffee with the espresso machines, so they refresh what they did the day before. And afterwards we have some pour over methods, we have some cold drip methods, we have a couple of different methods that we try out with the people, so they get to know the differences in brewing. On the third day, the whole day is latte art.
Wow.
So we have a little time for the theory behind it, but it's like maybe an hour, and then the rest of the day is latte art, latte art, latte art, and people leave there super tired, but happy that they learned, but super tired because learning latte art is lots of concentration, lots of focus, and it's like, for me, all of the other things were relatively easy, but latte art was the hardest part for me. And I mean, I can do maybe a leaf and maybe a heart, but I wouldn't call myself a great latte artist yet. I still have a lot of things to learn.
Me neither. I cannot do too much of latte. I can drink a lot of coffees though.
Yes, tasting and these things. So those are the three courses that I teach the most. I also teach sensory. So I teach people how to cup. I teach people what to expect in different origins of coffee. I teach them how to work with the cupping form. We have a beginner cupping form that's a bit, let's say, simpler, and then we have the official SCA cupping form, and we have two different sensory courses, like the beginner course where we start with the simplified one, and then the advanced one where we teach them how to use the SCA cupping form. And then we have a roasting course where we have a small 1 kg roasting machine, and we have a sample machine that has 2 drums with 100 grams capacity each. So we get into the theory of roasting, and then we get into practice and use those 2 machines to roast a couple of different samples and to show the students how to use a roasting machine. We teach them about the different parameters they have to look out for, like rate of rise, charge temperature, development time ratio, and we go into the chemistry of roasting. So all of these classes I teach, and we're developing a couple of more advanced classes at the moment that I haven't taught yet, but I'm really excited for them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty much quite interesting though. So it's very large stuff where you go with the crop to cup, right?
Yes.
Talking about the farming side, how to brew it, how to roast it as well, a lot of things.
Yeah, because it's really important that the barista know about these things so they can communicate to their customers.
Yeah.
So they can continue expanding the coffee culture. I mean, it's not the goal that the barista goes and like evangelizes the customer, but if the customer is interested and asks, it's very important that the barista can answer their questions. So that's why we give them also all of the theoretical input, so that they have it in the back of their head and they can answer if anyone asks.
Wow. So yeah, I've got last 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, the first one regarding the coffee. I would say, what do you want to take and what do you want to leave? Which means, what do you want to take, whatever you have drank over here, the coffee that we have been talking about, do you take anything with you, any knowledge and any stuff from Nepal, Nepalese coffee culture? And the other side, do you want to give any information or any idea where you think that this should be done so that you can see, the culture would grow much, or let's say this would help people out in terms of coffee. So do you understand what I'm trying to explain?
I think so. So on one side, something I definitely want to take and teach more of after having the experience here is the hospitality side, which I think that the inherent culture here in Nepal. I mean, Nepal. The slogan is the smiling country, or the
Peace.
Peace. Yeah. So it's a lot of good energy that you get here, and people are very helpful, very friendly, and they make you feel welcome. So that's very, very, very important, I think, and I think I will have a bigger focus on it after having been here. Also, we tried yesterday together here a coffee from La Cali, which was amazing. I haven't tasted anything like that. It has a really intense caramel licorice flavor, and I really enjoyed it. We made it with a V60.
Yeah.
And so those are the two really big experiences. And of course, meeting you and having all of this together was really, really amazing.
Wow. The things that you want to give or leave here.
So the things that I want to give, many of them I've already talked in the podcast, like little information bits about farming, information about how the processing can improve. So also maybe in the future with different companies from here where we have gotten in contact, maybe we can form nice relationships and continue supporting each other, like supporting the Nepalese coffee culture while having a good economical impact for both sides and having a good win-win. So that's really important, I think, to give.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage everyone who isn't abroad and hasn't heard of Nepali coffee culture at all to come to Nepal to enjoy not only the hiking, not only the Himalayas, but also the coffee culture, and to know that there is a seedling, I would say, of specialty coffee culture growing here in Kathmandu in Nepal. And that even here, even outside the coffee belt, there is some coffee, and even outside the coffee belt, the specialty coffee culture is growing. And I really want to encourage people to come and get to know you and just be here and try many different coffees and have the amazing experiences that I have had while being in Nepal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I would also, like to ask my last question. Everyone does that. We are always curious about the same question. Like, it's your first time in Nepal, right?
Yes.
And you came here with a different motive, where you are also a communication trainer, where you're into communication, and also you said mental health or anything like that, physical, psychological.
Yeah, exactly. So my teaching background in the university is that I created workshops for the career service center of our university where I studied, and I teach students about resilience, about stress management, about rhetoric and communication. I teach also about project management to students on a student level. Like when I talk about project management, it's not like big IT project or something like that. It's more like self-management. How do I set priorities in my studies? How do I manage my time in a way so that I can have free time and at the same time excel in my studies and reduce the stress levels? And so I teach these kinds of things to students, which is my educational background, which helped me a lot to start teaching about coffee. Once I knew the theoretical and practical side, I already had like the teaching background.
So since it's your first time in Nepal,
yes.
So how do you find, like, you have already heard Nepal before as well, right? Because you have explained me about these things. So what do you think of the whole experience? How do you describe it?
So it was amazing. It was definitely amazing, and I really want to come back because there are actually many things that I haven't experienced yet here. So I really want to go to Manasulu and see that whole trek. I want to see some more temples, which I didn't have so much time to do this time around. And I want to continue learning more about the culture, and I would love to come back.
Awesome. Basically. So I think this is it. It was really nice, to have you here, talk about coffees and everything.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for having, being here, Esteben. It was really nice talking to you.
Thank you so much, Manoj, for inviting me, for having me here, and for teaching me so much about the Nepalese coffee culture, and for making all of this possible.
That was an awesome experience, talking about different kind of coffee cultures, and to let you know about Nepalese coffee culture as well. So let's
Thank you so much.
end this podcast with this. Let's grab some more coffee as well.
That sounds good.